What's going on YouTube? This is SG1 Sports. If you're watching our college football channel, we continue with our 2023 predictions. The Iowa State Cyclones are up next. Let's take a look at some of the other predictions for Iowa State. Now you see the FPI has them at 5.8 and 6.2, right at 6-6. Athlon also has them at 6-6. The over/under is at 5.5, so that means Vegas thinks 5-7 or 6-6, the most likely records for this Iowa State team. My thoughts on this team, they've got some pieces back on offense. The offensive line, I think, is probably going to be the key to this offense and how good they are. If they're able to get a push and run the football and protect Hunter Deckers, I think this offense can be pretty good. And look at the defense. The front seven is very average in my opinion, but the secondary should be really strong. That's going to be the strength probably of this entire team is the secondary. And if you want to really zoom in on that, it's the cornerback position. They're gonna be really good there at that cornerback position. So that's where I like this team. And again, offensive line maybe the biggest question mark, but they're gonna be well coached. Matt Campbell always has this team ready. Not gonna be the most talented team in the Big 12, but I think they'll be competitive this season after a rough year last year at 4-8. They get Northern Iowa to open up the season. FCS team, I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about these FCS teams, but I believe Northern Iowa is normally one of the better teams at the FCS level. So maybe this game's not a blowout, but I still think Iowa State will win. I think they get that win, and then they play Iowa at home. Remember, they beat Iowa last year. It was a bit of a surprise, especially on the road. Now this time at home, I think Iowa comes in there and gets some revenge. This should be a low-scoring defensive battle like it usually is in this series. But I like some of the pieces Iowa added in the transfer portal. I think this is an Iowa team that's a little bit better than they were last year. I think both of these teams are a little bit better than they were last year, but I am going to go with the Hawkeyes here. So I think Iowa State loses that game, but then they bounce back and they beat Ohio on the road. Then they'll get Oklahoma State on September the 23rd at home. Should be a good one here. Pretty even matchup. On a neutral field, I'd probably take Oklahoma State in this one, but at home, I think Iowa State, tough place to play. I think they get it done. I think they beat Oklahoma State. And again, their secondary, maybe enough to slow down the passing attack for Oklahoma State. They get Oklahoma next on the road, September 30th. It's going to be a tough game, again, playing them on the road. You're looking at an Oklahoma offense. It's probably going to be able to run the ball, throw the football. They should be balanced. They were really good offensively last year. Should be good again this year, and I think improved, especially up front on defense. So I think Oklahoma's a little too much here. They win this game. Then you get TCU the next game, October the 7th. Another tough matchup. I think TCU is going to be good again this year. Not as good as last year, but they should still be right there near the top of the Big 12. So I think this is a tough one for Iowa State. I think they lose this game to TCU at home and drop to 3-3. The next game is on the road at Cincinnati. I've said this before. I think Cincinnati's probably the worst team in the Big 12. They'll be playing at home, though, so they'll have a chance in this one. But I think Iowa State finds a way to get it done. I think coming off of 2 losses, they come out really focused, really prepare well for this game. And Matt Campbell has them ready to go on the road and beat Cincinnati. Then they get a bye week, so they don't have back-to-back road games here. They actually get a bye week between these 2 games. And that's a good spot for it, really. A Baylor game that's going to be tough. A Baylor team that's going to want to run the football. So that does kind of play into Baylor's hands if Iowa State's front seven isn't as good. But if you can force Baylor to be one-dimensional and you can take away their passing game, then that's going to help you out as well. I just think the bye week is going to help Iowa State. I think they're really prepared for this game. And I do think they have one pretty good road win in them this year, whether it's Baylor or maybe BYU or Kansas State. Somewhere on this schedule, I think they go on the road and beat somebody. I'm going to say it's Baylor. Then they get Kansas. They've got some momentum after winning a couple of games. They're going to play a really good Kansas team. I've talked about it before. I'm really high on the Jayhawks. Talent-wise, though, this is a pretty even matchup. Jalen Daniels might be the difference for Kansas and the reason why Kansas would win this game. But I think playing at home, again, having some confidence after 2 straight wins, Iowa State gets a big, big win here. And you might look at it now and think, well, beating Kansas is not that big of a win. But I think Kansas is going to be possibly ranked at this point. So I think this is going to be a huge win for Iowa State. Get their 3rd win in a row, get to 6-3. Then you go on the road to face BYU. And have to go out there to a tough place to play. And again, I'm going to come back to Cincinnati and BYU. I think they split those 2 games. So if they beat Cincinnati, I think they'll lose to BYU. Could go the other way, but I see them splitting those 2 games. Then they'll get Texas on the 18th. at home. Are they ready to pull off another big upset? I just don't think so. I think this Texas team, this Texas offense is going to be too much, and I do like the Longhorns to win this game. And then Kansas State to close things out on the road. Tough place to play against a pretty good Kansas State team, a team that's right there in the mix at the top of the Big 12 this year. So that one's going to be tough, I think, for Iowa State. I think they lose this game, and they dropped to 6-6. So I feel pretty good about this record prediction. Where the wins and losses come, you could definitely possibly change some things around. Maybe they beat Iowa at home. Maybe they beat BYU, but they lose to Cincinnati or Baylor on the road. I do think 5-7 is more likely than 7-5. So again, you saw that over/under at the beginning at 5.5. I think that's a pretty fair number. But I think this team has just enough to get it done, to get to a bowl game and get to 6-6. Would love to get your thoughts on Iowa State. Where do you think they'll be at the end of the season? What do you think the record will be? And give me your predictions down in the comments below.